Hello, this is Kyou of Kyou System. I was just out on a walk a little earlier. I'd been sitting around inside for most of the day, and I wanted to get some fresh air, move around a bit, and try to clear my head a little bit as well. And the weather outside was nice. It is, I should say, an overcast early evening, and the temperature is nice, but, well, there wasn't anything wrong per se. It was a nice enough walk, but there was something that stood out in my mind, or that I was reminded of, especially the general sort of atmosphere, and in particular the diffuse evening light coming through the low hanging overcast sky, which is a steely gray, and against so that against the green trees and the like, since it's summer now at the time of this recording, and everything is full, well, not in full bloom because there's no flowers anymore, but there's everything, all the trees are full of leaves and the like, since it's summer. And the result is this contrast between this dark green against a gray sky, this gray overcast sky. And the I don't know if it was just the time of night, or well, no, not even, because there were other people around, most of them walking dogs or some such, or going to or from their cars. And I had this very distinct impression that reminded me of, now I don't know if, of an area from Yume Nikki, I was going to say. I don't know if you are familiar with Yume Nikki. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably have at the minimum heard of it. I don't know, maybe you've played it. I would highly encourage you to, if you're a fan of my work, certainly. But nevertheless, there's a particular area in Yume Nikki. I want to say it's called either the mall or the shopping center or some such. It's in like a multi-floor department store type area, and it does have some NPCs in it. A lot of Yume Nikki areas don't have much in the terms of like other, well, a decent bit of them do, but this area in particular has more humanoid NPCs sort of wandering around. And you can go in and interact with them, but they make a sort of distorted, static noise and then just move away from you. There's no meaningful interaction, no meaningful communication, nothing. And as I was out on this walk, and I saw these other people walking their dogs, living their lives, it felt very distinctly to me like if I were to try and interact with them, if the thought had crossed my mind for whatever reason to try and go and talk to any one of them, the interaction that I would have with them would be about as ultimately meaningful as Madotsuki trying to talk to any one of the wandering people in the mall area. And that's not to say, oh, haha, they're NPCs or some such, because that's not what I'm trying to say. It was more so just well, something in the atmosphere, I think, and just was something with how isolated I've been feeling. And I think a lot of it, well, let me say this. And a lot of the dreams that I have, the more vivid ones that stand out more prominently in my mind at least, there is recurring imagery, especially of walking alone through areas that are overcast, and that are heavily overgrown. Usually along, like, sometimes I'll be walking or sometimes I'll be cycling, and there'll be familiar paths, familiar roads, like the road to and from my parents' house, or trails I walk along a lot, or trails that, especially places when I was a lot younger. And it'll be the same area as, the layout will be the same, all the buildings and the like will be in the same places, but there'll be no one else around generally, and the roads or sidewalks or paths will be in a great state of disrepair, and the plant life will have made, it's obvious that no one has tended to it for years, and it's heavily overgrown, often coming up in cracks between the asphalt or the panels of the sidewalks and the like. It's always intact enough to get around in, at least, but it's always just the very distinct feeling of just going through along these long deserted paths, these areas that seem familiar but they're just abandoned basically, or left behind, or which is abandoned, the tomato, but nevertheless, I think you get the idea. And the weather outside today, where I was out on this walk, is the exact same sort of general feeling. The temperature is even enough to where it doesn't feel hot and it doesn't feel cold. There's not too much wind, not too much background noise. Low-hanging overcast sky, lush greenery all around, and I suppose there's something about it that really resonates with me, and always has resonated with me. And I suppose you could look back and say, well, of course, Kyou, it's because of childhood neglect and abandonment, or some such like that. And it's like, well, you have you're seeing this imagery in your dreams because there's all this imagery of these abandoned areas, and you're the only one in them because blah blah blah, etc. And there's probably some degree of truth to that. I won't contest it, but it's always very interesting that it's always that specific atmosphere for those dreams like that. It's never in the winter. It's when there's no greenery. It's never like bright and sunny or dark, pitch black at night. I do have a lot of dreams that are set in the dead of night where it's completely pitch black and there's no sources of light, even though I can see fine in them. But feels like a separate class of dreams that I have from the ones that I'm talking about, at least. And I don't really know, I guess I don't have a point that I'm trying to make or a conclusion that I'm trying to reach regarding these dreams and this imagery. It's just something that really stuck out prominently in my mind when I was out on this walk earlier, and I thought it might be something you might like to hear about. Perhaps not, but oh well. I hope you enjoy these. Even if it was originally just a thing I did to try and express some of these thoughts and impressions that I have that are really not in things that I can't really express in, like, because I could write like a short essay or try to talk about it in like a game project or something like that, but there's something about that where now don't get me wrong, there are some things where talking about it in that way can be very cathartic and very satisfying, but there are other things where, like for something like this, where it's this minor, fleeting, surreal sort of impression, and I can transform that into perhaps an atmospheric thing in something I create, but that's so far removed and abstract compared to the actual feeling that I may just, want to talk about to someone, especially someone like you, and just do it that way, get a much more, like, a sort of human, have more of a human connection with it, have it be more a direct personal thing of just sharing this feeling rather than having to sort of translate it or convert it into this other form in order for it to be digestible or accessible. And now there are some things that require this sort of processing, this sort of transformation in order to be accessible at all, but for this, There's some things I just want to talk about, you know? But in any case, I don't really have anything else to add on this subject, so I hope you enjoyed listening to this, or found it at least kind of interesting, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.